So introduce yourself a little bit, what you do, so we know who you're talking about, and maybe someone out there with the issue knows why he should be listening to you and taking your advice.
Yeah, man. No. So first off, thank you for inviting me on the podcast, man. I love the theme of it. It sounds like you get to talk to a lot of different people with a lot of different topics. So I think that's great. It's always fun to learn from other people. One thing I don't do is I try not to really give advice, more or less, just kind of share like what's worked for me and what hasn't worked for me. So, and that's not any whatever to your question or whatever. Yeah. Like I just feel like, I know for me, like I hate being told what to do. Helmer, you dick.
What did he say?
He said, I'm watching. I don't even say. I love it though. But I'm glad he's here. That's our homie. But so one of the things though is just when I'm trying to, like, I don't like being told what to do. Mm-hmm. And I found that, telling people what to do usually does not work. Nobody really wants to be told what to do, especially a dude, at least a lot of the dudes I know and myself. Mm-hmm. So I know that just by sharing kind of my experience and some of the things I've been through, some of the things I've learned along the way and continue to learn, mm-hmm. I think that resonates with people, and just being honest about stuff, versus trying to say, well, you need to do this or you should do this. Now, I mean, yeah, I can make suggestions, no doubt, especially when people are asking for it. But with that said, a little background, I guess, on me for those who don't know, I went through about a 17-year drug and alcohol addiction that started when I was about 14. And it was tough, man. It was a long haul, I guess. And a lot of that stemmed from just a pretty rough childhood. Like there was a lot of love in our house, but it was pretty chaotic. And, I kind of used that to my advantage to play that victim role. Mm-hmm. And I used, alcohol, started with alcohol and weed, mm-hmm. As a way to run. Like I was like a professional runner. Like I would just, like, if I was gone all the time, I was at my homie's house or I was out skating or playing baseball, whatever I could do to like check out. And this is even before I started using, alcohol and drugs, mm-hmm. whatever I could do to check out and not be in my present moment, mm-hmm. I would do. Okay. And so, that's ultimately what, and of course, some peer pressure and trying to fit in and trying to just find myself like as this kid, mm-hmm. and to kind of fast forward that really just progressed over, like I said, like 17 years where I found myself in a spot with, I'm married, thank God, still to my awesome, amazing wife. Mm-hmm. We have 2 kids, but at the time I just had my daughter and she was 2. And, I was literally waking up every day, just like either I was like praying to just die. I wouldn't say I was like suicidal, but I just didn't care if I lived or died, or like I just needed like some help. I was so desperate mm-hmm. at that, because I would wake up every day swearing that I wasn't going to do what I had done the day before, mm-hmm. which was wake up and start drinking by noon. Mm-hmm. And, that led to other substances till all hours of the night. Mm-hmm. And, it just got to a point where I literally couldn't take it anymore. And so, I reached out for some help, and, that was probably one of the toughest things. I went to rehab for 30 days. I left my family, which, there's a lot of other people that leave their family. We're talking, in the, our servicemen and women mm-hmm. for much longer than that. So I don't want to make it seem like, it was so rough, but at the same time, it was rough to take off and just kind of bail. But I knew that there was something in my gut that was telling me, and I'll equate it to God for me, mm-hmm. was telling me like, either go or something really, really bad is about to happen. I have something more for you in this life, but I can't show you what that is until you start to do the work.
Okay.
So yeah, I went to rehab, and about 6 months out of that, I started this podcast just as kind of like this way to kind of help keep me sober. I noticed there wasn't a lot of other sober podcasts out there, and yeah, I mean, it's kind of, I still do it today. Every Friday we put a show out, and people stay sober. It helps me stay sober. So that's kind of the gist of it in 4 minutes.
Yeah. So let's start with the what. Since we're talking about sobriety today, and obviously it's important, helps the world healthy. I like with the hashtag you put with your stuff. You write, keep your blood clean. What does sobriety mean to you, and how has sobriety changed your life for the better? Because many people that I've met, like, hey dude, I don't have an alcohol problem, I don't have a drug problem, my life is still fine. Obviously from the sideline looking in, it looks like this person has an issue. This person is not acknowledging. So why sobriety, and why choose sobriety? What is sobriety, and what does it mean to you?
Man, I mean, it saved my life. It saved my family. It saved my job. It saved everything. It's allowed me to find out who I really am. I think that's probably one of the biggest things. Like, I had no idea who I was. I was so numb to the world, and I was so spiritually unfit. Like, I've always known that God has lived in me. Growing up, we went to church. I went to catechism. I did all the things I guess you would do as a kid, like to check the boxes that your parents tell you that you have to do.
Right. So did you grow up in a Christian family?
Well, we grew up in a Catholic family. So we went to church on Christmas, Easter, and we watched the Notre Dame games, basically. No offense to the Catholics out there, man. I still got a lot of love and respect for that. But it was like, the best way I describe it is I went to church because my family, went to church as a kid, but I didn't really know the first thing. And trust me, I'm still learning this every day. I didn't know the first thing about building a relationship with God and versus going and doing the ritual stuff, those were two totally separate things. And once God spoke to me in this moment, which was right before I went to rehab, I found a Bible laying in the middle of the road as I was debating what I was going to do. And he just said to me, like, go, like, I got you, like, you're doing the right thing, like, go. And so that was a real pivotal moment for me that kind of launched this new relationship, this new view, and this new kind of eagerness to find out who the heck I am. You know what I mean? And why, how many of us have asked, like, why am I here? Like, why the hell am I even here? Like, what is my purpose? Why
do I exist?
And so I think, why do I exist? Like, so that purpose, I think, was a lot of fuel for, for that kind of launching point. And now, man, my purpose is to love people, is to, take care of my family and love my family, and to serve other people. I mean, that's it in a nutshell. And, and to stay sober, of course, too, because that's kind of the backbone of it, in addition to God, of course. But, so I don't know if that answered any of the questions. I forgot what you asked.
No. You're all good. You're all good. So we were talking about what is sobriety, what it meant to you, and why you chose sobriety. So it was we talked about why you chose sobriety, and obviously you see the results of it and the benefits of it in your personal life. Why? What is sobriety? How would you define it for somebody else? Like, everybody has their own definition of sobriety, right? Or say, if we can take sobriety and use the word fast for sobriety. Hey, I'm in a fast. I'm fasting from sugar. I'm fasting from certain things. Like, so Catholics have a certain time of the year where I don't know the exact name, but where they restrain from certain things. They call it a fast. And usually they're things that have control over their life, or things that they usually have to have caffeine, sugar, things like that. And most people
Yeah.
don't think those are things that control your life. But I've seen people that haven't had coffee for 2 days. Coffee controls their life, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah, sure. Yeah. So with the fasting, I mean, the way I understand fasting, and trust me, I'm not an expert at it by any means. But what I do know about it is that it's not about the substance or, what's up, Moke? Oh, Moke's on here too. What's up, buddy? What I do know about it is it's not so much the substance that we're fasting. Mm-hmm. I mean, it is, that's the face of it, but it's really about denying ourselves those things, whatever it may be, so that we pull in closer to God.
That
and
internal
that
battle.
We learn to rely, like for like example, like I relied on the crutch of alcohol for many years, right? That was my go-to. Like whenever I felt stress, anger, happiness, joy, sadness, a funeral, a party, whatever it was, there was always alcohol there for me to partake in, right? So for me, it's been about learning how to sit in the moment with myself, learning about who I am. You know what I mean? Learning about how to deal with life on life's terms and not on Shane Raymer's terms, because that's a tough thing. So I remember you had mentioned something in the intro about control, and control is a big one. Like I still struggle with that, like trying to control stuff. But when I'm at my most peaceful moments and my most places when I'm happy and just at ease with myself, like just where I'm at, it's when I have no control and I completely rely on God to drive the bus. Like when Shane's driving the bus, man,
off-road.
It's liable to go off a cliff, man, like for real. Yeah. But when I'm in the back seat, way in the back, and I'm trusting God to just show me your will and grant me the power to carry it out. Basically, that's part of step 11. Keeping it simple like that. That's when I'm in my most, I don't know, probably, most spiritually fit, but also I find the most peace in that. Now, I'm not saying either that I'm able to do that every day. I'm no saint. I'm not perfect. Like it's a battle. That's why I continue to work a program, you know, like I have to continue to work a program and show up every day to do that. But man, it started for me with cutting out those substances so I could really find out like who I was and how to dive into that spiritual connection.
That's awesome. Sobriety and addiction are two total like black and white, right? If you want to say black and white, sobriety and addiction, and most people define addiction in different ways based on how it controls their life or how much of their life is controlled by a certain substance. Personally, I've never had a alcohol or drug addiction. When I was younger, like we spoke before, I did have a porn addiction, right? That I had to overcome and battle. What is addiction? Like you've had just your own experience, and then all the people that you have worked with, the AA meetings. What is addiction from we're not scientists, so we're not going to be talking about genomes and all that other chemical stuff, but
Nah, yeah. Well, I think for me, it could be anything. Like it could be, we kind of talked about this a little bit ago before we got started. It can be anything. It could be drugs, alcohol, sex, pornography, food, shopping, money, anything. Like check this out. Cherry pies, cherry pies, baby. Emergency only. Like this is it's somewhat of an addiction for me. It's a crutch. Yeah. And what happens is, thank God I don't turn to vodka or cocaine anymore. Yeah. But there are times still when I'm pissed. Like what was it? It wasn't that long ago, but I had a really bad day. Something, it was work stuff, whatever. And I was just real stressed out. And I was like, I'm going to the store and I'm getting 2 cherry pies and some cupcakes, and I'm just gonna smash it to the face and just sit there and just feel like a piece of shit.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like it's like, and it sounds so ridiculous, but that's like really what it takes. And the point there for me is that I wasn't spiritually fit in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm relying on something else. So I don't really think it matters what it is, if we're using it as a way to kind of either cover up or run or mask or not deal and cope with the way that we're feeling right now. It's a really hard. And then, so we look at from a society perspective too, how many commercials do we see for pills?
Right.
You know, and I'm not a doctor either. So I just want to be first and foremost about that. I know that there's medications that certain people need and that they have to take to help. So I think that everyone's situation is different. But if we kind of look at it from a bigger perspective, we're kind of taught and conditioned to look at, I'm not supposed to feel anger or sadness or hurt. Let me just take this pill and I can just numb out from all of that. And so I think for me, it's taught me and continues to teach me. And sometimes, man, I don't want to feel, trust me, but it's taught me to be able to kind of tap into that spirit and kind of reconnect with my human side, I guess, and have to sit in the moment. Like a lot of what we talk about in recovery, in step work, in meetings, is being in the moment. Like how many of us out there are future tripping right now because of all the shit that's going on? What's going to happen? A lot of people have lost their jobs, like financial stuff. Like there's so much anxiety and fear and all this stuff going down right now. And rightfully so. We're in a crazy ass time. Like nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow. And I think that's a good point. We don't. And there'll be plenty of shit to worry about tomorrow. So how can I really dig into myself and find a spot that I can sit in and be at ease in right now, enjoy my kids, enjoy my wife, enjoy the work that I do, enjoy this conversation. Like I'm right here with you right now. We're having this conversation. I'm in this moment and my mind is not out tripping on, tomorrow or tripping on the guilt and the shame and the stuff that I did in the past. And for me, that just comes with showing up. Like this is a process. I'll never arrive. I'll never get to this destination and I won, what I mean? Like, it's just, it's a constant process and battle of learning and growing and stuff. And that shit, that's what gets me excited, I think, to wake up every day. I'm like, God, what do we got going on today? What's up, Chris Carroll? I see you on there, buddy. Miss you, bro.
Exactly. You're saying keeping running, like Apostle Paul says, every day is a race. So every day you get up, it's going to be another battle that like, okay, am I prepared? Am I going to fight my battle or am I going to be lazy today? And you mentioned the times like this and how crazy it is. And I'm thinking to myself, like, dude, even unbelievers today or people that believe just in a higher power today are forced to believe and to trust in something that because they have the stock market's going crazy. There's no control over anything. You really have to trust and have faith in something, right? And many people turn, like you said, to alcohol and drugs. And I'm just thinking someone coming home from work, right? And they're like, dude, I had a crappy day and I'm just gonna go drink. But what is that feeling like when you wake up in the morning? And I know it's called a hangover, but what is that feeling like when you wake up in the morning? You're like, okay, well now I'm sober. How do I deal with the rest of my day? What are some things that you went through like personally?
Yeah, man, damn, you're making me revisit some stuff right now, and I appreciate it. I mean, it's good because I have 6.5 years sober, which is crazy to me how fast it's gone by. But you do forget, Mike said it feels like crap, like pretty much. This is on the Instagram.
Okay,
I don't know if you can see too. But yeah, it does. It feels like crap. Like it feels like dog shit. Like, and so there's not only the physical part of it, that's a given, right? But for me, there was so much guilt and so much shame every morning, and it just compiled. It was like I mean, you're consistently on a daily basis. At 2 years sober today, man. Congrats,
Nice,
Mike. That's awesome, bro. Yeah, that's freaking great. Glad you're here, bro. But that thing where it's just over and over and you're constantly stuffing stuff down, and then each day gets a little bit worse, and then you try to act like everything's okay and put this face on like, oh, I'm cool, I got this together. It eroded on me to a point of like sheer desperation. And the thing with me too was, there's probably a lot of my friends and even family and people that I've known for a long time that were shocked that I went to rehab and that I had like a problem. And the part of that is that nobody knows what's going on in someone's mind except themselves for the most part, unless they're communicating to people. And usually when we're intoxicated day after day after day, we're not communicating with everyone because it isolates the shit out of us. So like my mind, and I still battle with this, but I mean, there's like 5 people up there going on, just like, all different opinions and thoughts and stuff. And so to battle that, we talk about mental health, it's exhausting. And so I really came to like, not only the physical stuff, waking up every day with that, with the guilt, the shame, but like to a point of like sheer desperation where, like I said earlier, like it was like, just kill me, or God, please help me, because I don't know how to do this. Like I tried to stop on my own. I would go from, drinking, and then I'd quit drinking for a week and I'd just smoke weed. And then I'd go back to drinking, and then I'd, do other pills and cocaine and drugs in the mix of all of that. And, a lot of late nights. And I got to say, I had a lot of fun times too. Like I never, like there was definitely some fun times, but towards the end, it just got to a point where it wasn't fun anymore, and it really was exhaustion and pure desperation, because I knew God had something more, and I really wanted to find out what the heck that was. And then really fast, of course, my family, my wife, my daughter at the time, there was a lot of guilt and shame in that. I was doing the same stuff that I swore up and down I would never do, that I saw my father doing. You know what I mean? I lived that lifestyle as a kid, with drugs and alcohol in the house, and that being a fueled way of just pure unhealthiness and a lot of emotional abuse and just chaos. And like, I was bringing that same shit into our family, and I didn't want that anymore. I wasn't going to have it, at that point.
That's crazy. So I personally know, and I'm sure there's a bunch of kids out there like 17, 18, 19 years old where maybe their family isn't perfect, and especially at times like this, they're probably bored at home, just doing stupid things. You said what helped you was realizing that you're meant for something more. You kind of found yourself that you have a purpose.
Yeah.
What helped you get there? Like what snapped or made you realize that, like, look, like there's something more to my life than me just wasting it. Even though I have this addiction, like you were motivated to overcome it, Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good question, man. Like I don't know how to describe like the face of it, other than like, I literally felt God telling me like, I have more for you. Like there's something more there. It was a gut feeling. Let's just call it that. Like there was something that was inside of me that, it just felt like there was this energy there that was shifting me in this certain direction. So that was kind of the start of it. But man, what did you, I totally just drew a blank.
No worries.
Question.
I heard, actually yesterday, Theo Vaughn was on, and he's like, look, before I started, cause he's trying to be sober now too. And he said, before I even tried being sober, I kind of threw it out there like, hey, I'm going to be sober, and just threw it out there, proclaimed it so my family knows. And they're like, at first my family's like crazy, and my friends are like, dude, you're crazy. What are you talking about? But that first step, just throwing it out there, acknowledging the fact like, look, I have an issue. I need help.
Yeah.
What, like, I'm trying to find,
It's so hard. It's really hard to do that.
where do you find the courage
It's
for
really,
that? You know what I'm saying?
like pure desperation. I think that's kind of what I meant, I guess, in the last little part I was talking about, was like, there was just sheer desperation to change, I guess, you know, and I guess I finally had the revelation too. I played the victim role for so long, like, oh, I grew up in this shitty, you know, environment, and I'm just a piece of shit. And like, I'm just gonna this is like my, this is my destiny, basically. Like, I'm just gonna try to be, because I love music too, man. I played a lot of music, and so like I was like, I'm just gonna party, and like I'll just try to do music or whatever, And it, like, I think the desperation point of it was really kind of what like shot it off, I guess. To kind of dive into asking for some help, but so I tried to control everything too for so long. So it was really that moment of surrender.
Okay.
Like I remember this shit like so clearly. Like we were at Merchant in Maine in Vacaville when I finally decided that I was going to tell my wife what I had been doing. So basically, real quick too, I got to tell you this because it won't make sense otherwise. But in the last like year, I mean, my day was like, I was working swing shift. I was waking up at like 9:00 in the morning. I would get ready for work. I'd be white knuckling it so I could hurry up and get in the car. I would drive to Sacramento, and on the way I'd stop in Dixon and I'd get a big ass bottle of vodka, and I would dump it in a McDonald's cup with Red Bull, and then I had about a 20-minute drive from there, so I would down it as fast as I could before I got to work, and then I would have to stay. I have to stay intoxicated like that whole night at work and pop pills and stuff just so I could get through.
Wow.
Like I couldn't, and I never thought I would get to that point. Yeah. Like I always had it. Like I'm not a blackout drunk. Like I didn't really do a whole lot of stupid shit. Like, I mean, I got in some fights and I was goofy and stuff for sure. And I did some dumb stuff, but like when it got to a point where there was like no controlling it anymore, I completely lost control of it. And so that was the point though, is like, I had literally lost control of everything. Like my life was so unmanageable at this point. I couldn't do it on my own anymore. Like I had to surrender it to somebody else. And I might, so maybe for some of those younger people out there, or maybe for some people who aren't younger, who are just, my age or our age or whatever, maybe they're not at that point, but it's a point of like, gosh, this alcohol stuff is it's so normalized, right? It's like, it's everywhere, and maybe I just want to stop. I just want to see what it's like without it for a while. Connection and just being open about it and talking about it is like really a big, big part of that, and admitting it to someone. Like we can't really make changes if we're holding secrets and we're stuffing that stuff down. So we really got to open up about it and kind of give it up to something higher, whatever that is for somebody else, So that was a big part of it, was just surrendering and saying like, God, I'm willing, I'm ready. And like, I want this change. You know what I mean? It's a long process, and it still is.
Yeah. No, that actually leads us into, we have a question on YouTube that somebody just posted, and it said, hey, do you find it a struggle to stay sober? I have my days, no doubt, like where it's, anger creeps in. I have a lot of great, people in my network that help to keep me in line. A lot of people that won't blow smoke up my ass. They'll kind of tell me I can reach out, I can lean on them. A lot of good men, and just a really good community. So that's one thing I always rely on. I have a sponsor in the program that I meet every Thursday with. We met this morning. We actually recorded a podcast this morning. It'll come out tomorrow. We just did some sponsor work. So like, if anyone wants to see like what a sponsor and sponsee kind of conversation looks like, that's kind of what we did today. We worked a little bit of some, I don't know, step work. So much, but out of the book. Sponsor. Is this like a sponsor in an AA program? Well, what is this?
Yeah, it's a 12-step program. I try to keep it just general on that tip, but yeah, 12-step program. A sponsor is basically a mentor, a friend. You can call him whatever you want. I always felt kind of weird doing the sponsor thing. I've kind of gotten over that, like saying it. But he's a good friend of mine too, man. We've been working together for a few years, and so to answer the question though, I mean that helps having those people and resources to lean on, and doing that work. Like alcohol is the solution to my problem. Yeah. Alcohol is not the problem. I'm the problem. So as soon as I can recognize that and start to work on that, that's when I can start to cut out the alcohol and stop leaning as a crutch, if that makes any sense.
So what I'm hearing is like a community of accountability is super important for anybody that's trying to be or stay sober.
Yeah, absolutely. Someone just said you're not alone on there. So that's a really good point, because what alcoholism and addiction does is it isolates us. And what the enemy does, if we're talking, on some spiritual terms, the enemy isolates us. And what is going on right now in our country? Mm-hmm. We're being isolated. We're all being isolated. We're social human beings. We love connection. We love being around each other. That brings spirits up, and we're being separated right now. And so it's really, really important for people to know that you're not alone.
Yeah.
And that there's, we can't go to meetings right now. We can't go to church right now, but we're adjusting and we're adapting, and we have to do that in order to really survive. For some of us that, to some extent, we have to show up. Like that's one of my favorite lines. I have it written down. I say it all the time. I think about it all the time. Just show up. It's 3 simple words. I usually, when I don't show up to stuff, it's because I'm in my own head and I'm trying to control stuff. So if I just show up to what it is, man, God will take care of the rest almost every single time. There hasn't been a time that he's let me down, but yeah, that's good right there, man. That's good stuff.
That's awesome. Another question we had.
Can I say real quick, just so I don't forget? Helmer said on here, I drive a Range. There was one time we were in San Francisco and I was hanging. This is just for Josh. No one else will know what the heck I'm talking about, but he doesn't even have a Range Rover. But we were driving in San Francisco and I was just drunk as shit. And I'm hanging out the door. My buddy drives a Range Rover. Mm-hmm. just stupid, just like stupid stuff that I would never do. Yeah. And that's kind of a dumb example. You kind of had to be there in that one, but it's stuff like that. That's not me. Yeah. You know what I mean? It was me at the time, but it's not me. And I can kind of laugh about that stuff now, but I'm so glad that I'm not that person anymore, But I'm sorry. What was the question, bro?
No, we'll get back to the question. I have a comment to that. So a lot of people I noticed, because when they're not under the influence of a certain drug or alcohol, they find that they're not socially acceptable, right? Like, I'm not really a social guy, or I'm much funnier when I'm drunk, or I'm much funnier when I'm high, or I have way more fun with my buddies, or my buddies think I'm cooler when I'm drunk or high. And this leads to the question is, what are some of the false or untrue stereotypes, if you will, of sobriety?
Yeah. The first one that comes to mind is that you can't have fun and be sober. Like, I mean, and that's a really good point about the social anxiety, social awkwardness. That's why a lot of us drink, right? Let's say we go to a wedding. Like, I can't dance worth a shit. I just bob my head and kind of do like this kind of stuff and just try to look cool, even though I don't. But you get a few drinks in me, I'm like I'm tap dancing. I'm doing the robot. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I can dance. I'm great. I can dance like crazy. So there's that tool, back to the tool thing, that a lot of us rely on in order to come out of our shell, to lighten up a little bit, to have some fun. Okay. Well, for me, what it wasn't the fact that I necessarily needed alcohol to do that. I was just so insecure about myself, and I had so many demons like built up inside, and anger and resentments and all this shit from just years of stuff, that I didn't know who I was. Right. Like, I wasn't confident in myself. I wasn't confident in who Shane Raymer was. and I just had no clue. And so the only way I knew how to open up was to get some alcohol, to get some drugs in me, to where I could put that mask on and I just didn't have to feel again. I could just be I could be this character, whoever I wanted to be. So that's not the case when I got sober, because it took some time. It doesn't mean I was still, going out to bars and going and doing stuff, but I can go to a wedding now and I can dance. I still can't dance worth a shit, but I will go sober. And if my lady wants to dance, like, I'm gonna go dance with her, and I don't care. I have a good time doing that. Is it hard sometimes? Yeah. What's hard is watching people get wasted and make fools of themselves. It's kind of funny sometimes, but that's kind of hard. You know what I mean? To watch people who I know are struggling with the same stuff that I struggled with, But man, I have so much fun. I have so much fun with my kids. I have so much fun, joking around. Like, we have a couple of text threads that roll on and that are just hilarious. And we're just talking shit and just having a good time, and out and, when we go out places, I don't even go out that much anymore, to be honest, because I'm kind of a homebody now. I'm about to turn 40 soon, and I'm just getting old. But
hey, 40 is the new 25.
That's what I've heard, man. I don't know. My wife will be 40 in a couple months. I'm a little bit behind her, so she can tell me first. But what did I say? I can't wait to live a more sober life. Social anxiety is real. Yeah, like the anxiety aspect. I have someone close to me who struggled really, really bad with anxiety. A couple people actually, where they can't even go out of the house because their anxiety is so bad, and alcohol is the only cure to that. And it just takes showing up. It takes a lot of work, and it takes being honest to kind of jump out of that. And once you kind of work your way through some of that fog, man, there's so much fun to be had on the other side. And you can be an example for people. Like I get to be an example for my son, for my daughter, for my wife, for my friends, for my family, as somebody who has been able to like kind of turn my life around and put some positive things into it. And then take that and kind of, spread it outwards, I guess, man. And that's a lot of fun to me. Like, I genuinely wake up excited every day to kind of see what's in store. Because I know there's going to be something good.
I'm trying to plug in my charger right here. Sorry.
Oh yeah. No, you're good, man. Yeah, this is fun though, man. Thank you. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for everyone for joining in too. I hope that some of the stuff is making some sense.
No, this is awesome. It's I appreciate having you on, because you're just you're saying it like it is, and all the BS aside. And we have somebody that just said I can't wait to live a more sober life. Social anxiety is real. You're right. Yeah. I wish I had more examples. Social anxiety is real. And I think that's, with anxiety, we as a people need to learn, I think, to communicate. And the more we become communicating over media and all this type of stuff, it makes it more difficult to communicate in real life. And there's cliques, there's all these type of mental things that sometimes it's hard to accept people, and some other people find it hard to find a clique that they fit into. My next question is almost like how to find a friend, how the heck do I find a friend? And usually you find a friend with people that are doing the same things. Find a hobby.
It's a good point. Yeah, it's a really good point. There's the sober community is massive. I mean, it's worldwide. It's all. I'm sorry, I keep laughing. Helmer keeps sending me funny ass texts, and so I'm doing the live right now, right? And then all of a sudden it comes.
You see his text message?
Yeah, I saw it. This time it was just a big middle finger. So Helmer, there you go. But I'm sorry, man. We gotta. So let me just say this actually on that too. Like, we're talking about fun really quick, and don't let me forget the question. But like lightening up.
Thanks, Mike.
There's one of my favorite things is rule 62. Like, don't take yourself so damn serious, And yeah, we're talking about some serious shit here. Like for some people it's life and death, but at the same time, like, how do we have fun with it? Like, how can we have some comedy in it? Like, that's a lot of what I do on the podcast. Like, I love to have fun too. Like, I love to joke around. Like, I love to try to not take myself too serious, because it helps to just be at ease, I guess.
Get through things a little lighter.
Yeah. And so we got to have some fun, man. We got to joke around, and there's plenty of that. You can do that being sober. But to the question that, the community is huge. I mean, for me, I've met a lot of people. I have a lot of friends who I've known for a long time that have went into recovery too. Moke loves your hair, by the way. He says you have the best hair he's ever seen. I have a lot of people though who I've already known, and then I've met a lot of people in the rooms too. In meetings. I've met a ton of people through the podcast. Like, I think I've probably underestimated how much like God's blessed like our family with this podcast with Sober Guy that's been started. I mean, it's a community of people, men and women from all over the place, that extends outward to other podcasts and other stuff. And so it's really just been, okay, so let me sum it up like this. You have to put yourself out there. Like, I had to put myself out there. Like, I had to be really the only one at the time back in 2013 that I was rolling with that like got sober. Like, I was the only one, and it was really hard at that time. It was really hard. I had to kind of distance myself from some of my homies for a little bit, just to kind of get my bearings and kind of figure out where I was at. But like, once I made that decision and did it and just said like, screw it, I'm all in on this. Like, I'm going for it. Like, I put myself out there, and like, boom, it's just spread over these years. Just to, man, so many new friends and so many positive like relationships and opportunities in business and podcasting. And I mean, I do podcasting for a living now. Like, I mean, it's unreal sometimes. Like, sometimes I'm like, dude, how did I get in this spot? Like, it's just been, a real blessing. But it started with me just kind of putting myself out there and kind of trusting in the process, I guess. And so if people are willing to do that, it's not easy. But I'm here to tell you as an example in my own experience, like, you can do it too. You just got to go for it. And there's plenty of people that will support you along the way. And those people that don't support you, drop them like that bad habit that you had as fast as you can. Because you mentioned it a minute ago, you're going to be like the people that you hang with. And if you're hanging with good people that are supporting you, that are bringing you up and not putting you down, and that are positive influences, that are making good decisions, you're going to thrive in that environment. And if you're hanging around people who are doing the opposite of that, you're going to sink in that environment. And that's just the way that I've seen it happen in my own experience and in other people's experience. So you got to put yourself out there. I think that's a good place to start.
It's crazy how like that truth is so simple, but many of us choose to make others happy, like our friends, instead of our family and ourselves. Like, hey, I hang out with all these cool guys, right? And what, I'm going to look so stupid in front of them if I make myself or my wife happy. Oh, they're going to think I'm whipped or whatever. Nah.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Well, that's where just being confident in your decision as a man or a woman, I think, comes in, and just knowing yourself. Knowing what you want to do, not being influenced by other people's opinions or what they think or what they say. Like that, that just reminded me of something. I remember a couple days before I went to rehab and I kind of made that decision. I finally said to myself, you know what? I don't give a shit about what anyone thinks. I don't care what anyone says. Like, I know because I tried to do this, like I mentioned earlier, many times, and I kept failing at it. I kept going back. But I finally, once I made that decision and went all in and just didn't care anymore, that's when like this whole thing like opened up. You know what I mean? I had to just go for it. And that it's hard, man. It's not easy. So I really admire people who can actually take that step and go for it, because I don't care what anyone thinks about me.
Right.
Like, put it that way. I mean, and I, you know what? Let me even back up on that. I do care what people think about me. And that's a hard thing to deal with sometimes. But at the end of the day, I know that that's not healthy to do that. So I can continue to work on that.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, it's gotten so much better by learning who I am.
Okay.
You know?
So that's a perfect spot to ask this question. We got another question on YouTube from George. He says, how does a person gauge when it's time to get help? What has to happen to a person just before they know they need to get help? You mentioned like total desperation. It sucks to tell people like wait for total desperation, because the honest truth is don't.
So yeah, and I definitely, so here's a good point. If and I don't know if he's asking this question for himself or for a loved one or whatever, but chances are, if you're asking that question, there's a good chance that there may be an issue. So you can kind of start there, right? If you're pondering that question, if you've been kicking it around for a while, that might be a good place to kind of run a check. You know, for me, I knew I had a problem for a long time. It was almost like I think I said destiny earlier. Like, I felt for many years that like my destiny was just to be this, like, I don't give a shit about anything kind of guy. Like, whatever, I'll just figure it out later. Maybe I'll win the lottery and marry a hot chick and everything will fall into place. Right. Yeah. Like, that's kind of like I'm just going to fly by the seat of my pants, you know? And like, that didn't work, obviously, you know? And so, I knew that I had an issue with this for a long time, but it wasn't until like I started to see repercussions of it, you know, financially broke, like getting evicted, almost losing my job, almost losing my marriage. You know, what's crazy is I never had a DUI. I don't know. I have no idea how. I drove drunk and high so many times, and I drove very recklessly because I had this point like where I actually wanted to just like, I didn't care if I just crashed and died or I got pulled up. Like, I just didn't care. I was just stupid, completely out of my mind. But like, so if there's those signs, if you're starting to lose things, you know, those are some of the obvious ones, but I think we all know to an extent, and only we know what we're experiencing, what we're feeling. If we're feeling depressed all the time, if we're really relying on alcohol or drugs to take us out of our reality, we can't function without it. We can't go to a birthday party or to a baseball game or to, man, I wish baseball was rolling right now. I'd love to go to a baseball game, but we can't do anything, a funeral, without that crutch there. Yeah. So I don't know that I have the answer to that, other than for me, like, I knew in my gut that I had a problem for a long time, and it was just a matter of me not listening to the bullshit in my head and not listening to other people tell me you don't have a problem because you're not as bad as so-and-so, or you don't do X, Y, and Z. You know what I mean? Like, everyone's story is different. Everyone's situation's different. And, you know, the best thing someone can do is just reach out. Like, you can holler at me on Instagram, on Twitter. We have, you know, we're doing these meetings, live meetings. Like, I'm in meetings, digital meetings. I post them on our thing so you can hop in and talk. Like, you really just got to put yourself out there and start to connect with people. And trust me, there's plenty of people out there who can help kind of bridge some of those gaps and answer some of those questions with their own experience too.
Okay. Gio says, many friends and family members have told me, I wish you'd stop drinking and don't come around me when you're drunk. That's been a huge part of my eye openers. So the question that gives me is, what is a healthy way for a family member or a friend to tell their friend or family member, like, without them getting bitter, you know, without the person with the issue getting bitter about it?
Yeah, that's a really good question and a really hard one too. I can't promise that they're not going to get bitter about it. that goes back to what I was saying in the beginning of the podcast too. No one likes to be told what to do. Like, nobody wants to be told what to do. Nobody wants somebody to point out their flaws or their issues or their problems that someone thinks. So you really have to walk very carefully around that. At the same time, you know, like I have to set really clear boundaries with people who are still, still drinking like that,
Yeah.
or still living a lifestyle that I don't really want to be a part of. So one of the best things that I think you can do, and I know this kind of sounds very counterintuitive for a lot of people, and sometimes it's really tough for me. But the best thing you can do is just love them. The best thing you can do is just love on that person. And I'm not saying take any of their shit or give them money or do anything for them that's going to jeopardize your own sobriety or your own family or anything like that. You got to have clear boundaries. But you never really want to approach somebody and kind of try to scare them into quitting or try to shame them into quitting. Like, that's just not a good way to approach it. It's only going to make it worse. And for what was his name? Was it that asked the question again?
The guy that asked the question.
Is it George?
This guy was Gio.
Gio. So like for Gio, like if he's struggling with that as being the person, number one, I think that you can find some perspective in that your family loves you so much, bro, that they want to see you be the person that they know you can be. Mm-hmm. They want to see you and be around you in the Gio that they know. They're seeing a Gio that they don't know that's coming out. And that's what a lot of it does, man. It's like Jekyll and Hyde. Like, I got homies who are such good dudes, and then the moment they get alcohol in them, they're like a whole different person. And I can't even kick it with somebody like that. Yeah. Like, especially now, but even back in the day when I was still like drinking and stuff. And so it's poison. It poisons our minds. It poisons our souls. It makes us into people that we're not. So like for you, man, like I would really take that to heart and think about that. It's not an attack. It's not anyone trying to shame you or anything like that. It's all about perspective, right? And so if you can take that perspective of love, that they love you, that they care about you, and that they're really trying to, help you and want to see you do good, I think that's a really good place to start. And then maybe you can start having a conversation with them about that and opening up a little bit. I think that's a good way to approach it.
Yeah. And I think if Gio, if you're the guy with the problem here, say for example, you were my brother and I came across a little harsh and you got bitter, what would I think help both of us out would be just to have an honest conversation about it, right? Just be like, hey, okay, I'm sorry I came across a little harsh, but can I help you acknowledge the fact that you have an issue, right? That you need help. And what I've noticed is anybody with like you said earlier, people hate when you tell them what to do. And it's almost impossible to make somebody go into a rehab center or to make somebody choose sobriety unless they don't choose it for themselves.
Yeah, 100%, bro. You nailed it.
And you can't make them do it, you know?
You can't. Like, trust me, I've tried with my father and I love him very much, but I have to love him at a distance. I've tried everything, man. And so this is a good example, and I'm sharing this very openly right now, but just because it's very relevant to the topic. Like, I love him, but I have to have those boundaries with him. I have to love him from a distance. And I've tried everything. I've tried being angry at him. I've tried not talking to him. I've tried letting him live with us, and trying to get back on his feet. I've tried, I've tried literally everything, trying to show him stuff, trying to lead by example. Like, nothing works. And at the end of the day, it's not about me trying to do anything. I'm not responsible for his success. I'm not responsible for his failure. I'm responsible to love him. And if I got to love him at a distance, that's cool. That's the way it is. And that speaks way more than me trying to tell him what to do, or because God's got him on his own path, on his own journey. And he's going to have to work that out himself when he's ready. It's to your point of this, like, only the person can be. I mean, I've seen people who have been in 30 different rehabs, They got money. So they're just constantly in rehab after rehab because their parents are putting them there, or their job's putting them there, whatever. They don't want to be there. They're not ready.
Yeah.
It's not their time. Some of them die before they get a chance. And it's really, really sad. But for those of us who have a chance and have a second chance, man, I'm going to take full advantage of that shit.
Amen. My next question is you, which was perfect. You talked about your dad and you've mentioned some of these things. What are some of the excuses that you hear or that you had maybe personally to continue to drink? Like you said, you used to play the victim card, right?
Yeah. That was a big part. Well, I think just the denial of it, like you can sit and compare, like I could compare my story to like, I haven't done like some of the things that I hear in the rooms, like that people have gone through or that has happened to them or that they've done. I mean, I'm not even on a level like that. You know what I mean? And so I could easily say, another reason I bring that up is because I could easily say, which I did for a long time, well, I'm not there. I don't have, I never got a DUI, right? I don't have 3 DUIs like that guy. So I don't have a problem. So you know what I'm saying? You can I'll justify anything. You know what I mean? I'll justify that cherry pie sitting next to me is healthy for me if I could. You know what I mean? Like I could figure out a way to do that if I'm not honest with myself. And so I think that there's a big denial piece in that that is really hard to break through until, for a lot of people, something bad happens to them, or they reach that point of just desperation like I did, or they just can't take it anymore, the pressure, the stress, the anxiety. That's a lot of it for a lot of people. And like even my wife, what's up, Keith? I saw my boy Keith just joined in. I love that guy. My wife, she doesn't have the issue that I have with the alcohol and drugs, although we did party together for a long time. But she had, she dealt with depression and postpartum and anxiety like severely after our kids were born, our first kid. And, that was huge for her to be able to finally, and she had tried everything with that, and God like literally saved her one night in church. Like she didn't want to be there. She was not raised in a, with a big religious background, although there's some, definite religion in the family, but wasn't going to church and really practicing. So it was really abnormal for her to even show up to church one night, but she was so desperate for something to save her from this depression and anxiety that she went. You know what I mean? My mom actually invited us one night, and it was the craziest thing. And that's why I always fall back on that. Just show up and God will do amazing things in your life if you just show up. Just showing up and just being there and letting God work. Like, my wife got saved that night, from just this terrible state of depression and anxiety. And it, she still battles with it here and there, but it's nothing like it was. And it all goes back to what you were asking me earlier, just about stepping out and giving up control and just trusting the process, and just kind of putting ourselves out there. It's huge.
George on YouTube said, wow, that is a great perspective on your dad. So he appreciated the fact, I'm guessing, when you talked about like, hey, he's taking his own path. Don't beat the guy.
Yeah. No,
you can't make him.
And that's came to George after a lot of work. And I still have, there's still some stuff in there that I need to work through with that forgiveness stuff. And like, and my dad's not a terrible guy by any means, but, he definitely made his mistakes as a young father. And, but the one thing I've realized, and this goes for all of our parents, all of our friends, our family, like, man, everybody's just trying to do the best damn job they know how to do for the most part. Yeah. There's some piece of shit people out there, no doubt. But for the most part, like, most people are really genuinely trying to do the best they can. And so when I could kind of step back and look at my father, like as a person who was lost and just trying to do the best he knew how to do and made some mistakes. And, so man, one of the biggest things I love in like I love work by Noah Levine from Refuge Recovery. And, one of the biggest things I've learned from him, and he didn't coin this or invent this by any means, but I heard it from him first. And he runs a great practice like this about, not taking things personal and learning how, like, my mind wants to take everything personal. So all the shit that was done to me as a child, or all the shit that my spouse did to me, or my friends did to me, go to bed. Yeah. And Moke just hit on that too. But there's things that would piss me off, and I took them so personal. I took them so personal growing up and into my adulthood, and I still take shit personal sometimes. But when I can work on that, not taking things personal and understanding that it's not me that it's happening to, it's usually the other person that's going through something or whatever, man, it really frees me up from having to waste energy on that crap. And then I can pray for that person or those people. Yeah. I can sit back on that and be at ease with myself instead of having to try to figure it out, or, cause it just robs me of time, man. And time is a precious commodity that we will never, ever get back. And Dan, time's flying by right now. So, I want to soak up every moment I can.
Exactly. Especially when you're a father or a husband, when you can invest time into like things that are, I don't want to say more precious because that's your dad, but things that are precious to your life that you can actually have an impact at that moment,
Absolutely.
So some people I've heard, and I'm not trying to get preachy right now, but so I love this guy, Jensen Franklin, and he was saying the Bible calls us to wait upon the Lord, right? And he says when we're under the influence of anything, we can't be mentally, we can't be physically waiting upon the Lord. And other people say like, oh, dude, drinking is chilled. This is just something classy. This is something that we do. It's a lifestyle. Why is it not drinking classy? Like what do you say?
Well,
for example, I'm gonna interrupt you real quick. President Trump is a sober man. That's classy,
That's classy. And you know what, on that tip, that's a good point. Not regardless of politics or what you believe or what you don't believe or whatever, let's set all that aside. Yes. That's one thing that I don't think our president gets enough credit for in the sober community, because there's so many opinions, and that man has lived a sober life for for his whole life, to my knowledge. Same, yeah. And that's that says a lot about a person to not be influenced by substances or be have to fall into that, because it really is, like you mentioned, the classy thing. And I want to say too, there's plenty of people out there, plenty of men and women, who can go have a beer or go have a drink and have it on a Tuesday or share a beer at a barbecue or something, and then not have one for, 3 more weeks and be totally fine. So is that the point of, like, you call it classy, or you call it the ability to have a beer and not be addicted to it? No doubt. Like, I don't see anything wrong with that. Alcohol is a tool, just like a hammer is a tool. A hammer pounds nails. A beer maybe relaxes you a little bit. There's a purpose for it. You know what I mean? Like, and so if you can use it in a healthy manner, no problem with that. Like, there shouldn't be any issue with that. But I think there's a caveat to that, in the fact that in society, I would argue that there's a ton of influence to keep us sedated and to keep us in a form of addiction. Because when we're in an active addiction, we're not our true self. We're not free people, in a sense. You know what I mean? We don't have the ability to speak up, to speak truth, to bring light to people, because we're stuck in that. And so I think that influence in our society to have, to drink, to make it cool, to do drugs, to, whether it's through music or media or TV shows or whatever it is, there's definitely a force there that really influences young people, middle-aged people, everybody. It influences people, to deal with the stuff that they're going through with life. When if they just could have some freedom in that, they could see that they don't have to use that.
Right.
in order to deal. There's a lot of other ways to do it. But when we're constantly bombarded with media, with stuff that a lot of the time is bullshit, you know what I mean? It really influences our mind. Our mind is so powerful. And, I was influenced by that for a long time. Like I thought growing up that I always wanted to be in the music business for a long time, in my 20s, especially in my late teens and into my 20s. And my idea from everything that I saw and everything that I read and everything that I was a part of, and I want to give respect to the straight edge community because there was a ton of straight edge kids at this time too, but I just didn't run with them because I didn't really get it. My mind was focused on, if I want to be in the music business or be in a band or whatever, like I need to be crazy. Mm-hmm. I need to be intoxicated. I need to be high, and I need to engulf myself in this lifestyle because that's what I see and that's what I emulate and that's what's going to get me money and fame. And man, and there's a lot of ego involved in that. That's a whole nother topic that comes into dealing with this work that, just dealing with myself and stuff too. So I'm sorry, man, I totally went on a tangent there. I kind of forgot where the original question.
No. You answered it just fine. That was awesome that you can kind of relate to it personally. Cambo just came on. What's up, Cambo? He said the struggle is real. Yes, sir. The struggle is real, and the struggle is real with everybody. And the one of the issues or problems that I see is people, for example, that don't have a problem with drugs or alcohol, think for some reason they're better than the person that does, and they forget the fact that, you don't go without coffee for 2 days, you start becoming a different person. You don't go without your Snickers bar, you start becoming a different person,
Yeah.
And,
no doubt.
Exactly. And so kind of to wrap this up, I want to go to the how can I? And we had George asking questions, Gio asking questions, other people, talking about that. Obviously, there's people experiencing this thing and they're trying to find somewhere to churn. So if I'm listening or if I'm watching this later and I have an issue, what is the best way, the safest way to kind of find my self-help?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's a ton of resources. There's a ton of ways to go about it. So back to what, I can't remember who wrote it in the box earlier, but number one, you're not alone. That's the biggest thing. Like you're not alone in this stuff. Like that's what it does. It isolates you. It makes you think that you're the only one going through this stuff. And, you're the only one who's struggling. And that's not true, man. There's so many people, myself included, that have gone through exactly what somebody's going through right now who might be struggling with alcohol, with drugs, whatever. Mm-hmm. So I'll share what worked for me. The first step for me was actually admitting that I needed some help. That's a tough thing to do, but it's very pivotal in that process of starting to make some changes, right? Like you got to admit to yourself and you got to do it for yourself that, man, and it doesn't mean, like I know a lot of people struggle with the fact it's like, oh, now I got to go to these meetings and I got to call myself an alcoholic. That's not what I'm saying. Like that's what I did. It worked for me. I'm not saying someone has to necessarily do that. You know what's going to work best for you. Actually, you might not know what works best for you. That might be why you're in the situation that you're in right now at the same time. So let's kind of be clear about that. But it doesn't mean that I guess everyone's situation is different. So first, you got to admit that there's an issue. Second, there's a ton of resources. You can start with podcasts. I mean, one of the things that I'm so proud of with That Sober Guy is that it's not meant to solve all people's problems. It's not meant to fix people. It's not meant to be a recovery program. But man, I've heard from hundreds of people who have told me that, man, it helped to bridge that gap between where I was at and where I needed to be, whether that was 12-step, whether it was church, whether it was a men's group, whether it was just reaching out and saying, I need some help to, my spouse, my family member. So point being, you got my podcast, you got a ton of other podcasts out there that are great. There's a lot of communities out there that you can kind of tune into and start to get an idea of what to kind of look for. Here's some other people's stories, to find out you're not alone in this stuff. Also, there is, we do a men's there's a men's group, TFH Men's, on Friday nights. So tomorrow night, we live stream a men's meeting. It's just for dudes, and it's phenomenal. Pastor Tim Nally kind of heads it up. I kind of host and help facilitate. We bring someone else in from the men's group, a different person, and there's 100 guys on there that are asking questions and getting connected. There's an AA meeting, the digital, it's zoomaameetings.com. It's every night at 6 p.m. I was just in there right before I jumped on this podcast tonight. And you don't have to say anything. You can just log in and just sit and listen. You know what I mean? And just see what you think. See what your heart tells you to kind of do. So yeah, I mean, a ton of resources. You can go to thatsoberguy.com. There's some resources on there as well. But yeah, man, there's just a lot of stuff. But it really starts with making that decision and saying like, man, I'm gonna jump into this and see what God's got, for me. Amen. And I think that's a good approach, bro.
That's awesome. And before we finish up, let me read a couple more comments to see if there's any questions.
Yeah.
Gio said, day 3 starts tomorrow. Had 6 to 10 drinks a day. Being out of service in India lifestyle has helped me on temptation. So I'm guessing day 3 of sobriety starts for him. So
it's awesome.
Awesome, Gio. Congrats. Then
I got one more thing too. When you're done, I don't want to forget.
It's important.
Go ahead. Well, it's just because you mentioned something in there about service. So one of the biggest things is like so minus the alcohol, we're selfish human beings. We're just selfish in nature. That's just we're wired. Like a lot of us like that. Now you add alcoholism in and other stuff, and man, like we can get really selfish. And I can get all caught up in my head. Everything's about me. One of the best tools that I've learned in how to deal with some of that stuff is by serving other people. So like my sponsor will tell me often, like if I call him and I'm pissed off about something or I'm scared about something, he'll say, man, you need to go help somebody else. You need to pray for somebody else that's going through what you're going through right now. And what that does is it alleviates that pressure of selfishness from me. And it kind of takes me out of my own mind. And it's a really great tool if you can practice it, to be conscious and in the moment. And it can really, really help with some of that stuff. So I just wanted to add that service work piece in there. It's really a big part of my program too.
Amen. And then, Campbell said, I'm glad I tuned in. I'm glad you tuned in too, man. Glad to have you here.
Right on,
George said, so his takeaways from tonight were just show up, which is super important. If you're trying to seek help, like you said, you don't have to say anything. Just show up, listen, and just see what you could take from there. And I'm sure there's going to be somebody in there that feels exactly like you and you can relate to. Then his next one was cherry pie cravings. And love somebody from a distance and start a podcast. So with start a podcast, I would say, like you said, go help somebody else in need. And if you don't know how to start a podcast, then you got that real sober guy has an awesome podcast on. So let's tell everybody where we can find you. iTunes, Spotify.
Yeah, so you can go to thatsoberguy.com. There's some stuff on there. We just came out with some new hoodies actually that are really cool. They're these California style hoodies, and so I got a new kind of summary logo on there, so you can find those on there. There's the podcast is on there. There's some great resources on there. Promises is a sponsor of ours. They have a network of treatment centers around the country. There's AA meeting finders and all kinds of stuff on there. But the podcast you can find also on iTunes, Spotify, any of the major platforms that host podcasts. And I think tomorrow's 313 episodes. So, I mean, there's a ton of content on there. There's a ton of different guests from, doctors and people in recovery and athletes and musicians. And there's just a lot. There's like my buddy Mark Saratella was on there 2 weeks ago. He's a comedian down in the Los Angeles area. And like, it's about having fun too, man, just laughing and having a good time. Okay. So you can check it out there. And I love hearing feedback. So feel free to reach out anybody if you need help or if you just want to say what's up or whatever, man. Thank you for having me on, bro. I appreciate
you for coming on, Shane.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure.
Thanks,
I heard, I think there's like 6 million or some people out of work now. And I'm sure people are feeling anxiety and stressing out. So I really hope somebody stumbles across this and finds your website, finds your podcast, so they can find help even before it becomes an issue. Just ways they can control themselves. So thank you so much again, Shane. Have a good night, sir, and I'm sure we'll stay in contact.
All right, man. Thank you.